Any volunteer would like to ask the first question? Which is always requires a bit of courage.
Bill Zhang, I work at OS Super. I just want to ask Bonnie, I think one of the biggest struggles I have working in a professional setting is really connecting with bosses. And I think when I say bosses, a lot of people can relate. It's usually older white male bosses. So I just want to ask how you've kind of made strides in connecting with kind of your bosses.
Great question, Bill. Bonnie, would you like to share your 2 cents on this?
Mm-hmm. So thank you for your questions. I think, yes, that's maybe kind of scary, you want to skip level and connect with older white male boss. But I think like the way how you connect with people also reflects the values of the company, of your organization. Because I feel like at NAB, I'm not that, nervous or scared to reach out to people. Like even people like 2 levels above of me, because they're really friendly and very down to earth, and they do value the employees. So they always encourage you to reach out, and they would really love to hear your feedback, because that will help the organization to do better. And in the end, is for the own good of the organization to grow and thrive. So yeah, and I think that if you can put away those maybe sometimes can be assumption that I'm very nervous to reach out, but actually it may not be that scary once you break the ice. So yeah, and on the opposite, if someone who is not willing to spend time to connect with you or talk to you or give you advice and feedback, that may not be someone you would like to reach out to, or to build network with. So yeah, hope that's answer your question.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie. Bill, I would also like to add 2 points. I'm acting as Susan while Susan's here, before Susan's here. So I think when it comes to connecting with bosses, because throughout, if you look at a longer lens, throughout your career, you would have the opportunity to work with so many different bosses, and each of them may have different personality, communication styles and all that. I think it's really important, first of all, to know your value and stick to your value and your true identity. The second thing is that you probably need to spend a bit of time getting to know a bit more about the boss on top of the surface level, because your direct manager is someone that's really important to your career, right? So you may want to spend a bit of time to know his or her interests and hobbies, his or her passion, his or her value, and most importantly, his or her priority and objectives. And then the next step, which is the most challenging step, is how to align your value and with his or her values and priorities. And then and basically instill this sort of belief every time when you interact with him or her, really letting him or her know that as an employee, as a valued member within the team, you really want to add value. And if you want to push back, what's the reason? Or if you have a different opinion, what's the reason of your different opinion? It's because that you value the quality of the work, so you don't want to rush, or because you have other priorities so that you don't have time to handle this particular task right now. It's really about how to align your value with the company's value and with his value, so that he or she knows that you are someone having a positive intent. So that's the 2 cents I want to add. Cool. Thanks for your question, Bill. I do see there's a question from Joseph. Okay. This is a good question. So, Bonnie, so where do you see yourself in the next 3 years? What's your next milestone? Just a disclaimer, this is not an interview, so feel free to share your views.
Right, that's a typical interview question, but yeah, willing to do that one. So in the next 3 to 5 years, I would see myself both developing horizontally and vertically. So horizontally, I would like to extend my knowledge in what I'm doing now, and to align my skill set in the past as well. So both in cybersecurity and financial crime. And then vertically, I also would like to see myself move up the career ladder. Well, maybe, to take lead of my team, or, to take on greater leadership roles as well. Not necessarily, within my team, but also, for example, outside work, like in my coaching development, like I'm able to provide more advice and help more young professionals to thrive in their career journey. So yeah, that's where I see myself in the next 3 to 5 years.
That's great. Thanks for sharing, Bonnie. Hope that answers your question, Joseph. Let's move on to the next question. I think it's from Benzi. So the question is, during your career journey, have you ever encountered situations that you need to reshape your career pathway if something doesn't work out? If yes, how did you adjust yourself and overcome it?
Hey, wow, this is quite an in-depth question, and I think I would need some time to think about it. So reshaping my career path. So by reshaping my career path, do you mean that I change my domains, or I change my, personal habit, like how I interact with others? Yeah. Is that what you mean, Nancy?
So I think while Vance is typing back, my understanding of the reshaping is, so have you entered into a direction, or have you been doing something at work where you don't feel like it's what you really wanted or what you were really interested in? Then you would consider change direction, or moving teams or things like that.
Okay, right. Understand that. Well, of course, I think it's quite common for people who have worked in the industry for more than 3 to 5 years to encounter those situations. So that was before I joined NAB, I was working with one of the big 4 consulting company, because they no longer call themselves accounting firms now. And I feel like what I'm doing at the accounting, the big 4 is quite repeating, just every day is the same. And it doesn't mean that I don't like it, because it's still related to financial crime, and I'm still consulting for the banks within financial crime areas, like helping them to uplift the policies and controls, and how to implement the design operations in a more effective way. But it just, it feels like the opposite spectrum compare working in the bank, because in consulting, you always tell people what to do. And sometimes that can be brain draining, because that involve a lot of back and forth communications. And sometimes, due to their, own internal policy, you may also face pushback, and then you need to negotiate a lot with them and try to explain and educate them why you need to implement that kind of policies, because it's actually for their own good to meet the regulatory requirements. And but at that time, I really feel like that's not what I enjoy doing, because with the Big 4 culture, it's very common to work overtime, and they are pretty much KPI focused, outcome focused. And when you want to move on to more senior role, you also have sales target to meet. So when I take the move to look for a career change and go through multiple interviews with the banks, I told them that it's not that because, well, I'm not, performing well within the Big Four. It just, well, I feel like, I want to, extend my passion to, what I'm, good at. And well, but still, what I've learned, in that, Big Four experience is that I can transfer my, consulting skill. Like I know how to talk to stakeholders. So in my next role, back to the bank, I can, communicate better with my team members and well, even outside the teams, to, more senior stakeholders and within my current role, third party risk. So we are not only communicating internally within the bank, but we also need to communicate and negotiate with suppliers. So these are all the skill set that I can, transfer to my next role. So yeah, I hope that answer your questions in, reshaping my career pathway.
Yeah, that's great share, Bonnie. I hope that answers Vance's question. So yeah, just to add on that as well, I think what I really agree with Bonnie on is that when you have a career, when you have a job where you have already identified and confirmed it's not your long-term aspiration, then you really need to really need to derive what's the transferable skills from that position so that you can take it to the next position or your next step. My personal experience as well is when I was working in the call center at Citibank, taking calls or performing customer service is very meaningful and it's very valuable, but it's not something that I want to do as a long-term career. So what I did back then was, first of all, I tried to learn as much as I can from that role, trying to get connected with as many internal stakeholders as I can through that role as well, and really showing the passion that I want to contribute more value, and of course doing the basics right, which is having your performance as your most powerful weapon, and then showcase that you can and you want to step up. And whenever it comes to the opportunity, you really need to articulate, as per what Bonnie has mentioned initially for the first question, really need to articulate what value you can add based on your previous experience. So even though you are in a position that you don't really like, but if you really have the right mindset in place, I'm sure you will learn a lot from that position so that you can take it forward and contribute to the new role that you're applying for. So that's a great question. Thank you, Nancy. We do have a next question from Livia. So Livia's question to Bonnie is, so Livia got inspired by your career journey. Could you please share how you transitioned from anti-money laundering role to cybersecurity related role? I think you already alluded a little bit in your previous stream, but feel free to elaborate, Bonnie.
Right. Well, that's a pretty easy one. I actually got reached out by a recruiter on LinkedIn when I came across this cybersecurity role, this opportunity. So that's why it's important to build a powerful LinkedIn profile. And because actually I didn't expect that, well, I would be, in cybersecurity someday. But then during the interview, my recent manager explained to me that they are currently under some team restructure, so they are looking to extend team, not just focusing on cybersecurity third party suppliers contract, but they also want to be more diverse and to have someone who have like a different background to join the team. So that's how my anti-money laundering and financial crime compliance risk management background came in handy. And well, I think that also reflects what the company values, as we talked before. So whether they are like human value, they value about the mindset, they value how diverse your skill set is and how you are able to transfer it to to bring it on board, and whether they are more focusing on the technical skill set. Well, like they really looking to some technical side, which is very niche? And, you know, are they outcome focused? You know, as I mentioned, are they focusing on KPI, sales target? And, you know, sometimes they just sugarcoat it as a performance target, or, you know, like, well, the way how they demonstrate their leadership. Yeah. And, and one more thing is that, well, I managed to, you know, prove myself during the interview that I have a track record as a quick learner. So, you know, when I first set my foot in compliance and risk, well, you know, I actually come from, you know, no banking or law background, but, you know, I still managed to pick up on the job. So this time I can, you know, also prove myself that, well, I'll be able to learn on the job, since, you know, it's not that technical cybersecurity focusing on programming, but this role is actually more related to governance and regulations. So I'm confident that, you know, with my mindset in risk, you know, and compliance, would allow me to pick up the pace pretty quick.
That's great. Thanks, Bonnie. You spoke very high of your current employer, which made me think interested in as well. Just joking, because I almost become your colleague, right? Because we're still being purchased by NAB, so the consumer side. But yeah, that's great sharing. Thank you. I do have a question that I want to ask as well. So we all know that cybersecurity has become a very hot and popular topic nowadays, especially after the recent incidents at, you know, Optus or Medibank. And a lot of the companies are investing a lot more resources in this area. And I think this is an area where a lot of our participants are not in, but very interested in finding out a bit more. So can you tell us a little bit more about, in a high level, what you do on a daily basis? When you mentioned about, you know, the managing the governance, the third-party risk, or cybersecurity.
Right. Yeah. Well, so cybersecurity is a very broad scope, and well, but it's not as complicated, you know, as you imagine. Because, well, for some, you know, if you are more focusing on the technical side, that's good, because I think there are many opportunities out there in, you know, programming, hacking, or cyber defense. And for this role, it's more, you know, as I mentioned, related to regulations. So I'm not sure if you have heard about the CPS 234 standard. So it's pretty much focusing on outsourcing and supplier management. Because, you know, within a bank, we have like 400 suppliers. For example, Microsoft Teams, they're all our suppliers. So we need to make sure that in their master service agreement, well, that is a section related to IT security. And then we need to make sure that, well, they stick to, you know, those T&C, terms and conditions, and make sure that, you know, in case, for example, when there's a security breach, then they have the policy and procedures in place to address, you know, what they're going to do, you know, if there's an security incident. And yeah, so those kind of security or data breach incidents is pretty much as well similar to you know, the Optus or the Medibank data breach that happened recently. So yeah, that's pretty much what my role is like in a nutshell.
That's great. Thanks for explaining that. All right. So do we have any further questions? I think Susan is about to be with us very shortly. So we should have time for another 1 or 2 questions.
Well, if there's still some time, maybe I can add a little bit more like
Sure.
how our team is like, because we have a pretty small team within, you know, contract review, like the master service agreement. And the good thing about working in this team, this division, is that I have the chance to, you know, explore, you know, like different functions, because sometimes we also have the chance to cross-train with, you know, the other teams within the same department. So recently we're also working on an assurance project. So it's like, you know, assuring that our suppliers, they have, comply with all the requirements. And then we also need to conduct on-site visit. So it's kind of like an on-site audit, but pretty much still IT technical focused. Well, for example, when we step into their data center, we need to look at, do they have all the security assets passed, in place? And then for, ex-employees, when their, assets is expire, we need to make sure that, they are, offboarding, and then they cannot, use the assets pass anymore. So yeah, things like that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So in your day-to-day, you will have the opportunity to travel to your suppliers or vendors site to conduct such assurance checking or auditing.
Yeah, that's pretty much an interesting experience. Because I know before COVID, we also have the chance to travel even to the state like for IBM to visit their data center. But I think we are less likely to do that anymore after COVID. It's a bit sad, but I think that's a good way to build a more diverse team, because recently we have also established our subdivision, our sub teams in India. So, when we need to do on-site audit, for our Indian suppliers, then we can just send the local team over there instead of, flying us, fly in, fly out.
I see. I do have one more question for you as well, Bonnie, while we're waiting. So, you mentioned that because cybersecurity, when we looking at it from face value, a lot of us may think it's highly IT related. But you also mentioned that your role mainly looking after the governance piece, which doesn't require you to have, that in-depth IT knowledge or background. So I think some of us in the chat room today also may face similar situation like what you already did. So your role in your day-to-day, you must have come across a lot of technical, contents or, IT related content because they are related to cybersecurity or any other third-party risk terminologies. How do you overcome this, and how, as someone who doesn't have that background, do you have any tips that you can share with the participants here today? Because I would imagine quite a few of us may came across such technical terms that we don't have a strong background, but we still need to work and deliver the results. So any tips that you would like to share?
Right. Tip number 1, Google is my friend.
Now we have ChatGPT, right?
Oh yeah, that's true as well. But as I mentioned, we are the one looking after the master service agreement, and we need to decide whether we can sign off or whether, for some suppliers, they would require an exemption. For example, when there is a breach, they need to report within 24 hours. And then for some, they say, we cannot do 24 hours. Can we do 48 hours? So, we still, need to determine whether we can approve for that. We need to escalate that exemption or not. So, for AI, yes, it can be handy, but they are not responsible for making this decision. So, I'm glad that I may not, lost my job within the next 10 years still.
Definitely not.
Yeah. And second thing is, as I mentioned, our team is quite diverse. So, it's only me that, not having that background. And, for some other team members, they also come from, different backgrounds, such as audit, accounting. And I'm glad that, one of my team members, he actually had a, cyber security qualification. So when I came across things that, I don't understand or I need a hand with, I can, just always reach out. So yeah, and I think actually he's on this call today as well.
Awesome.
So yeah, thank you.
That's great. And that echoes on what you just shared earlier, right? The importance of building meaningful and strong relationships, and really make your colleagues or your stakeholders enjoy working with you. And it's the same principle as how everyone excel in their interviews. It is really not only to prove that you can do the job, but also make people like you. And I think
exactly, and prove that you are able
important
to work as a team. Because after all, at the end of the day, we are there to achieve one goal. So we are there to deliver the same outcome. So we are always there to help each other. So yeah, and and well, maybe one last advice. Well, is more like taking the next step. So if you really want to further develop your skill set in this area, you can take some online course when you have the time, and to widen your knowledge in this area.
That's great. That's awesome advice. Thank you, Bonnie. All right, do we have any further questions? Should be able to answer another question. I think Susan should be with us very shortly.
I think Susan is in.
Hey, Stephen. Yeah, I'm just.
Awesome.
I just listened to Bonnie's advice, and it's really good. And we'd love to hear more. What I missed.
It's good that I have the recording, so you will have them available tomorrow if you want to listen to the play.
Oh, perfect. I'll definitely do that.
Wait to hear about your sharing too.
I'll take notes tomorrow. Thank you for having me.
All good, Susan. Welcome. So first of all, I just would like to thank Bonnie for her sharing previously and all the answers she provided to the questions. So before we let Susan to share her stories with us, let me quickly tell you how I connected with her. I'm not too sure whether you remember, Susan. I think it was around 2013 or 14, when I was volunteering in another WeChat-based community called Elite China. So the founder of Elite China, which is also my friend Jennifer, she told me that, you got to connect with Susan because she's really a superb role model for international students with high career aspirations. So back then, I added on WeChat. So then I became a quiet follower and a fan of Susan, witnessing her achieving one milestone after another. So her passion for technology, leadership, and community are phenomenal. Susan earned her bachelor's degree from Zhengzhou University and the University of Wollongong, and has also completed executive MBA programs at the University of Hong Kong, London Business School, and Columbia University. Currently, she's working as a product localization team lead at Canva, while also pursuing her PhD degree at the University of Wollongong. I believe she's a great fit for this month's theme of visibility and energy. And I'm very glad that we have Susan with us today to share her stories with us. So welcome again, Susan. Now, would you mind sharing your personal and career stories to us in more details? And then we'll ask you 3 questions before we move on to the Q&A.
Oh, definitely. Thank you for the intro, Stephen. I definitely remember you, but I can't believe it's almost a decade ago. We are that old, or me, just like a very experienced soul. So thank you for having me. And I think you captured all. I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm probably like most of you, 100% made in China. When I was 19 years old, my parents kind of shipped me to Australia to study in University of Wollongong, which has an educational program with Zhengzhou University. So I carried on with computer science degree, which I graduated in 2010, which is also a decade ago, as a software engineer. And then I did Master of IT. So after I graduated, I started as a software engineer for 3 years, working in a local IT company called Internetrics, which later on acquired by other companies in Sydney. That experience is really my strong skill set, craft on programming, database, website implement, things like that. And I went to an event called Geek Girls Dinner in Sydney, and I met a lot of really awesome girls working in the IT industry. And I really lucky met one of the recruiter from Google at that time. I didn't know she's a recruiter, but we kind of had fun, connected, bonded over drinks. And then she's like, oh, do you want to try, interview at Google? I thought, okay, I might as well try it. That's how I kind of knock on the window of Google, not really a door. And joined Google in Sydney and started my journey. So 4 years total in Google, 2 years in Sydney, 2 years in London, where I transformed from working fully at the back end to advertising platforms and helping the top brand around the world to build global campaigns, fashion shows, Met Gala, Super Bowl ads, 6 seconds to make you cry, make you fall in love, make you love the fashion or make the purchase, right? That's the power of the advertising. I also did business development for Google Arts and Culture, so Sculpture Bondi, Sculpture by the Sea at the Bondi Sydney Opera House, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. when there's no one, only the security with their gun behind our back. We take off the protector screen of the $1 million arts and capture the beauty of the culture, non-political, non-government driven. And it's really immersive experience of looking at how to bring all this digital experience online for free for all the audience around the world. And at that time, it doesn't really have COVID, right? So it's really eye-opening experience to looking at how does business development work and how can we using arts and culture to bring everyone much more closer by heart. So after that, I feel like I'm quite comfortable in the Google bubble and my very unsettled soul want to do more adventure. I went on 2 weeks kind of like fun research or just to searching for the soul trip to Antarctica. And after that, on the day back from the trip, I joined TikTok in China in 2018. So at that time, no one really know about ByteDance TikTok. We just acquired Musical.ly in Los Angeles and basically crafting the strategy to how to globalize it and how to turn it, to rebrand it into TikTok. So that was a really fun ride. I lost all my hair and this is a new hair I grow back. That said, one thing or few things about 996 or other working culture, or does it really have a culture at all? Is up for debate. I'll just shut up there. But that was really interesting experience to helping a Chinese company to go global and looking at all the different ways we can do it, whether it's advertising or live streaming or influencer, how we monetize on top of it. And while I'm working there, I thought it's really good to learn about business because I learned it in a really hard way. As a developer, I don't really know how to properly talking to people outside my comfort zone. So I did my EMBA while I working at ByteDance and travel around the 3 different locations within that 2 years before COVID, to learn from all my amazing EMBA students about the business, about balance sheet, about evaluating a company, about all the CFA credential and all the footnotes reading, which is really interesting to learn about financial literacy. After that, I guess I came back to Australia, joined Amazon and helping to bring all the international sellers onto the Amazon platform. That's how you have Korean beauty products, Japanese sake drinks, and also a lot of Chinese sellers on Amazon today. So pretty proud of that part of the journey, even if it's just 1 year. And then after that, I joined Canva, which I used the Canva platform about 7 or 8 years ago when I used to build small startups as passion project with someone else in Australia. So it's pretty good to deeply using the strategy on localization, which is one step further from globalization to truly localize into personalized experience for this digital editor upcoming platform, and also really drive the mission to do good as a kind human beings. Always choose kind over right, I guess. And also doing my PhD on the side and also trying to put my baby to sleep, which I did last hour. So I'll just stop there without rambling through. Definitely not that organized.
Awesome. Thanks for your sharing, Susan.
There's not a lot of opportunities over there.
For you is, what are some of the
journey, and I use that to help people to do time management. I always say, if you have all these questions, 30 to the team member because they can't answer. Free advertising space here because using the technology to make your life. Financial planner will ask you, what is your risk appetite? And for me, my risk appetite for life in general is the quite recent book in the recent years. I think he's a famous mentor for a lot of entrepreneurs out there. So, by Bill Campbell, I think, The $1 Billion Coach. I think another book is more like between novel and personal stories called Tuesday with Morris. So basically this person visit his professor every Tuesday, and his professor basically have the disease about to gradually dying. It's a dying person. So he visit him every Tuesday for a little bit chat, a little bit wisdom about work and about life. And you can realize how short our life is with this one life, unless you believe you have a second life or a different form of life. But how do you utilize your time, and how do you use this very limited currency? Not money you can earn, and that's something you can always earn. Time, you are always losing it, and how you deal with it. So I really love the story and the sentiment about it. So yeah, Tuesdays with Morris. I can type in it. Yeah,
okay, Tuesdays with Morris.
I think something like this, but yeah, you can Google search and correct it.
Awesome. Great. Do we have any further questions from anyone? Any last chance?
Tuesdays with Morris is also one of my favorite, and I know they have like stage theater dramas for that one as well. Both, I think one is in Cantonese, and then the other one is done in Taiwan in Mandarin. And and also I really love Mitch album novel as well. There's another one called The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. I'm not sure if you heard about that one. Yeah, that is very touching, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Yeah, that book is also very touching to read. So,
Susan, you probably missed the earlier part because Bonnie also had a degree in translation.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
In Sydney as well, or?
Yeah, no, I've done my translation degree in Taiwan, and my bachelor in Chinese literature in Taiwan as well. So that's why I asked you the question, how do you determine, where you want to do as, a living or as a career?
Yeah.
Because I didn't regret, to do literature or translation back then, because that's really where my passion lies. But then I've been working in journalism, in publication, and in-house translation for a while. It's not like I hate the job, but it's that the working hour is very long and the pay is pretty low, and it's kind of unstable because, if you imagine you're going to translate the Harry Potter book, and it probably take you half a year to translate just one. And sometimes, for some publishers, they will pay you like after each section, but for some, they'll just pay you after 6 months. So how are you going to, pay for your bills, pay your mortgage then? So it's not that I don't have a passion in it, but I just couldn't make a living out of it. So how do you, balance between passion and reality? That's a big question, I believe, for many of for us.
Yeah, I think you made a really good choice, right? And you know when to switch your gear, and that part of the experience will forever with you. And you probably can be a really good, like, for example, with your particular experience, you can be like language reviewer for our team, like within our team, something like that. Like you can review what are the cultural sensitive or what are the red flags of the things. You still can use that because that's a part the machine ChatGPT can't replace at all. So I think that's an advantage of your experience.
Yes, I can echo with you when you mentioned like localization to globalization, because I used to do translation for Uber, Sony, and what was that one? American Airline. So I do both translation for Hong Kong and Taiwan as well. And as you mentioned, well, something that cannot be replaced by AI is that when you translate the tone, even both are in Chinese, but the tone can be different. So you really need someone, who are familiar with the local culture to, do the localization.
Yeah, definitely. I think, be able to identify the gap from the machine. I think there's a book called The Most Human Human. It's literally talking about the chatbot and how that in relation to human. It's a little bit technical, but I found it's really fun and really nerdy to read.
The most of
The Most Human Human.
Oh, okay, interesting. I will look it up.
We can have a book club after this.
Yeah, I have the same feeling too. As well, I also type in my top 3 favorite books in the chat box as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. That would be great.
Cool.
I think you guys mentioned passion, like Chinese literature or translation. So although something that you may not choose them as your long-term career, a passion still has enormous value. It brings joy to your life, and you can really spend time doing something that you enjoy, and you get to know someone through doing it. Like myself, those who know me knows that I'm super crazy about soccer. So I used to joke about myself, saying that I can't make soccer as my career, but I want to be the best soccer player in my bank. So something, that element helped me better build connection within my workplace. So I think that's another benefit or value your passion can bring you, or your hobby can bring you.